My name is Calvin Floyd, and I'm the conservation advocate with Environment Michigan. Thank you so much for joining Environment America's Investing in State Parks Case Studies of Success legislative briefing. We'll have about 25 minutes of presentations from our guest speakers, and then the remainder of our time will be for moderated Q&A. So you can feel free to use the Q&A function. And with that, we've got some great speakers here, so let's go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to hand it over to Len Montgomery, Environment America's Great Outdoors Campaign Director, to introduce our speakers and kick us off.
Great. Thank you so much, Calvin, and thank you to all of you for joining us. So as Calvin said, I'm Len Montgomery. I run the Great Outdoors campaigns for Environment America, which includes all of our work to support parks and other public lands. I have been working with Environment America and our larger network for just over 24 years. And Environment America is a national environmental group with one mission, which is to protect the natural world. And we are made up of 30 state state environment organizations. I also want to thank our co-sponsor, the National Association of State Park Directors, for helping with this event today. So a little bit of context before we dive into the nitty-gritty of state parks. As I said, we work to protect the natural world, and we really believe that people need nature. And whether that's the thrill seeking of climbing higher than you've ever climbed before, or the more relaxing, soothing sounds of running water as you're lying on the grass after a long hike. We get something out of being outdoors that we don't get from our smartphones and we don't get from walking down city streets. And many of those experiences can be found in our public lands. And state parks and other state lands play a critical and arguably sometimes an overlooked role in the public lands arena. The national parks get a lot of headlines, but there are more than 9,800 state parks, forests, preserves, and other sites. And in 2022, and I assume these numbers just continue to get bigger, state parks welcomed 877 million visitors, compared with just over 332 million at national park sites. So people are visiting state parks in record numbers, and they're using them in diverse and different ways. So sports like climbing and mountain biking are growing in popularity. RV ownership is increasing. This is really exciting, but it also poses challenges to park managers who are managing properties that have been in use for decades before all of those things existed or were so popular. And then parks can also be, in addition to us stressing them out, they can also be stressed by natural disasters, from hurricanes and floods to droughts and extreme heat. And bottom line, state parks need a lot of resources to meet these challenges. And our panelists are going to talk about some success stories where they've been able to leverage resources to meet some of these challenges. So I'm going to introduce all of our panelists in a block and then hand it over to them to tell their stories. So our first panelist will be Rodney Franklin, who serves as the division director for Texas State Parks. And Rodney started his 34-year career working as a seasonal employee at a small historic site in Paris, Texas, the Sam Bell Maxey House. And after graduating, he went on to manage that site and then on to manage several other state parks before becoming the regional director of State Parks Region 5. In Waco, Texas, then accepted the position of deputy division director before becoming the division director in December 2018. And he leads over 1,600 employees that care for 90 state parks, and also serves as the chair of the board of directors for the National Association of State Park Directors. Kristen Kosick is the chief of Michigan State Parks. She joined the Michigan Department of Natural Resources in June 2025, and leads the Parks and Recreation Division, which is 700 full-time employees and 1,300 summer park workers They operate 103 state parks and recreation areas and more than 13,000 miles of state designated trails, state forest recreation, and the state waterways program. And prior to leading Michigan State Parks, Kristen spent 15 years working for the National Park Service in a variety of program and leadership roles at a bunch of cool parks, Yosemite, Sequoia, and most recently served as the chief of staff in Yellowstone National Park. Katie Lanter will be our third panelist. Katie is the policy section manager for Colorado Parks and Wildlife, where she guides the agency's response to complex challenges through regulatory and policy analysis, public engagement, and project management. And Katie has experience as a Peace Corps volunteer in North Macedonia, and also worked at the National Academies and the Western Governors Association, where she learned facilitating and how to foster collaboration against diverse stakeholders. And she holds a master's in economics from North Carolina State University and a bachelor's in natural resources for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And she enjoys tackling Colorado's challenging terrain, running, hiking, and otherwise adventuring with her family. And Chris Padgett will be our fourth panelist. Chris stepped into his new role as the administrator of Tennessee State Parks in January of this year and continues to serve as chief of staff for the Bureau of Conservation, a position he's held since January of 2023. Chris has been with the Tennessee State Parks for almost 28 years. His career includes service as a park ranger at Bicentennial Capitol Mall, more than a decade in leadership roles at Timms Ford State Park, including time as a park manager. And he then led the Middle Tennessee region as area manager for a decade. And he's a graduate of the Tennessee Government Executive Institute and the State Park Leadership School. And he oversees the Division of Parks, park operations and facilities management, while continuing to lead the Office of Real Property and the Bureau's Administrative Services team. And Chris is widely recognized as a values-driven leader who brings clarity, innovation, and steady guidance to complex organizational challenges. So as you can see, we've got 4 experts with a lot of experience doing a lot of what sound like very fun and challenging roles, sometimes multiple roles at one time. And I'm really excited to hear from all of them. And so we're going to turn it over to Rodney from Texas to kick things off.
All right. Thanks so much, Lynn. I appreciate it. And thank you for doing the slides, Calvin. We're going to jump right in. You can go to the next slide, please. Just a little bit about Texas as we get started to have a little context. 90 state parks, as you mentioned, Lynn, but 650,000 acres. We do about 9 million visitors. That's going to be important for this initiative. Next slide, Calvin. So that speaks to the need for more state parkland. We have over 30 million people in Texas right now. That's growing every day. If you could hit that button one more time. But that 650,000 acres put in context of state parks land, all of that would fit in the county, Travis County, which is where Austin is located. So Texas is a big state. 650,000 acres is huge. As my granddad used to say, they're not making more land. So more state parks would be great. Next slide, please. So luckily, a lot of people in Texas, including state leadership, our Texas Parks and Wildlife leadership, and a lot of our partners have recognized for a long time the need for more state park land. And thanks to champions like Luke Metzger from Environment Texas, who I know is on this call, working with Senator Tam Parker and Representative Wally, championing the Centennial Parks Conservation Fund, which is a $1 billion endowment that the citizens of Texas voted in 2023. We can use the interest generated off of that $1 billion to purchase new parkland and develop those parklands. And we've been able to use a few additional funds secured by the legislature, who's very supportive of parks, to acquire some properties, and we're going to be using the Centennial Fund to develop those out. Next slide, Calvin. So we've got an expansion of one of our existing parks. Enchanted Rock State Natural Area, and we were able to recently acquire Bear Creek and Post Oak Ridge, which you'll notice is in that Texas triangle, which is where the population of Texas, majority of the population of Texas lives. We're also going to be looking in the Valley in East Texas and all over Texas to find great parklands, but these are the ones that we've gotten first. So I'm going to talk about those a little bit. Next slide, please. So you can click through this fairly quickly. We want to make sure we're providing access as quickly as possible. So we're building these parks out in phases, with 48 months being the end of what would be total build out. We will be able to develop a little bit after that, but we're going to be providing access in as quickly as 12 months from the time we acquire a property. Public hunts, guided hikes, restrooms, and trails within 18 months. Next slide, Calvin. You can go to the next one. Bear Creek is the first one, and you can click through these photos just to give you a sense of some of the properties we've been able to acquire so far. Post Oak Ridge is over 3,000 acres. All of them have spectacular views. Post Oak Ridge is right across the Colorado River from Colorado Bend, 3,100 acres. It's got painted bunting, lots of turkey, deer at that property. And that's one of the first ones we're going to be developing. Next slide, please. And again, you'll see a lot of the same themes, a lot of water, a lot of pretty views. Next slide. A lot of environmental resources, habitat diversity, that it supports a lot of wildlife. Next slide. And we want to make sure those natural attractions are enjoyed by the public. Post Oak Falls will be someplace we'll take the visitors to view, as well as these very scenic vistas. Next slide, please. You can next slide on that one as well. This is a little bit more about Post Oak Ridge, just giving you a sense of what that's going to look like. And then the expansion of one of our most popular state natural areas in the state is our 5th most visited park, Enchanted Rock. And just being able to protect this view with thanks to our state leadership, and use the Centennial Fund to get primitive camping and more trails, which is the most popular amenity at state parks. We'll be able to protect this view and then provide public access and recreation to views like this. Next slide, Calvin. Absolutely stunning views, and you can see why we chose those properties to purchase. And so with that, I will turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Kristen, to talk to us about what's happening in Michigan.
All right, thanks, Rodney. It's great to be here with everyone today. I'm Kristen Kosick. I've been in my role as the Chief of Michigan State Parks for about 6 months now. And I previous to this, I spent time with the National Park Service, and it's just been a great change, you know, being at the state level and all of the different complexities and opportunities we have in Michigan State Parks. So today I'll focus on our budget and some of our successes and challenges that we're facing. So we have for FY26, we just formulated our division budget. It'll be $197.5 million. So, you know, most of that goes into operating appropriations and just taking care of our day-to-day work, managing the parks. We also manage the waterways program in Michigan. So that's all of our boating access sites and harbors across the state. And then we also have over 13,000 miles of trails that funding goes to support. We additionally get about $56 million from our capital outlay and grants program, and that's mostly used to fix infrastructure. We have almost, I think, over $750 million of needs statewide that we're trying to improve, from aging infrastructure, utilities, different buildings that need to be improved. So we're chipping away at that each year with our capital outlay budget. All right, Kelton, we can go to the next one. And like Rodney, this is just kind of a rundown of our responsibilities across the state. We've got a large state park system, and like I mentioned, the waterways as well. So we've got a great team of dedicated public servants, about 700 full-time employees, and then we hire an additional 1,300 state park workers during the summer to help us during the peak season. All right, we can go to the next one. So today, in my role, I've been just super thankful and reflecting on how fortunate we are that most of our budget comes from restricted funds and revenue sources. So this is something I wanted to highlight. My predecessor, who some of you may have worked with, Ron Olson, when he came into my role about 20 years ago, we were facing major budget challenges at the state level. So the parks had previously been majority funded through state tax dollars through our general fund. And over the past 20 years, the division has really shifted to focus on restricted funding that's dedicated for parks and waterways and trails. So you can see here in this graphic that almost 50% of our funding comes from our camping and lodging reservations. And that is huge because that's funding that's directly deposited back into our fund source, all of our revenues to then go back to support our park system. And so that's dedicated funding that we can use to continue to operate and support our parks. And then we have a recreation passport. That's a pass that we sell. There's a resident fee. That's $14 for the entire year for all parks. And then out of state is $41. And so the revenue from the recreation passport also goes into our park improvement fund, which is dedicated for the state parks to, continue operating and make improvements. And that was a huge improvement. We actually modeled our system after Montana. And then we also get revenue sources from state oil or from oil and gas and mineral royalty. And then some of our event and concession fees stay in the parks to support them. We get only 3% from general tax fund dollars. And we did see this year that we did get cut in our general fund because of challenges at the state level. So again, we're really fortunate that we can fall back on that 97% of user fees. And I will say some of our challenges with the recreation passport, that makes up about 1/3 of our budget. We're trying to increase participation. We only have about 35% of our residents who buy the rec passport. We have a program with the Secretary of State that it's really easy when you do your vehicle registration to just click, yes, I want to support state parks and I want to opt in for the pass. We were looking at an opportunity with our legislature to change it to an opt-out model, which would have made it even easier. It would have been included in your registration, and then you would have had to choose if you didn't want it. So the goal of that was to really increase participation. That's how Montana's state model or state passport model is, and they see higher participation rates. So that's something we're working on, just trying to continue to increase funding with more and more people buying the recreation passport. So that was not supported by our legislature this year. So we're also looking at opportunities for just a straight fee increase, which we know also brings challenges. A lot of people, those are unpopular. People don't want to pay more for a service. So that's something we're working through with both the recreation passport, which supports the state parks. We're also looking at raising watercraft registration fees to support our boating program. Those fees haven't been increased since 1993. So that's, I guess, one of our challenges is that when we do want to increase fees, it's difficult to do. It usually takes an act of our legislature. But camping, we do have the delegated authority at our DNR level to, increase camping fees with the cost of inflation. So that's been a real success for us. And again, camping makes up, almost the largest part of our revenue sources. So that's just a little bit of a snapshot. Again, we're fortunate to have the funding dedicated to parks. So we know we really appreciate, all of the user fees that contribute to keeping Michigan state parks as great as they are. And with that, I can turn it over to Katie, and happy to take any questions later.
Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, I'm Katie Lanter. I'm the policy section manager at Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and it's good to follow up on the Michigan model because I'll be talking about our Keep Colorado Wild Pass, which was, like you said, inspired in part by your model in Montana. So it's an annual state parks pass that people can purchase when they are doing their annual vehicle registration, getting their new license plates. And the way that it works, ours is actually an automatically opted in, although people have the ability to easily opt out if they want to. We launched this in 2023 and have seen some really wonderful results for our budget. We've had a 70% increase in our parks revenue since in the time that we've had this pass in place. And if people purchase the pass, our Colorado Parks and Wildlife logo appears on their vehicle registration card, and park gate attendants can ask to see the vehicle registration to confirm that. But for the most part, it's on an honor system. And we do charge $29 for the pass, which is a great value in comparison to our $80 annual state parks pass otherwise. It is only available to our Colorado residents. But really, if somebody's going to visit one of our state parks, say 3 or more times per year, it really does pencil out for them to go ahead and stay opted in on the Keep Colorado Wild Pass. I think for an audience of legislators and legislative staff, you might be wondering, how we got this pass to be. And I think some key parts of it were being transparent and also flexible. On the transparency side of things, the enabling legislation included 10 goals that we seek to achieve through the additional funding that the Keep Colorado Wild Pass brings in. And we do report annually to our legislature about our progress against those goals. And then I also mentioned that ability to easily opt out. I think that flexibility also gave some political cover to folks that might otherwise have objected to the pass. And we did have bipartisan support for the legislation, and it passed relatively easily. And we had about a year and a half then to go ahead and implement the pass. So that included working with our DMV on the technology side of things. We did a pricing study to help us figure out that price point, which did have to be approved by our Parks and Wildlife Commission. We also did outreach to disproportionately impacted communities about an income eligible version of the pass that we have. And we also, needed to develop all our marketing and communication materials. We put flyers in the mailings when people get their vehicle registration materials. We put billboards up, did social media, all the things you might expect. I'll talk a little bit about how it's going now. So we find that about 27% of people stay opted in for the pass, and we are aiming to raise at least $36 million per year from having this pass. The first $32.5 million does go to state parks operations and expansion. We also then have $2.5 million that goes to backcountry search and rescue. $1 million after that goes to our Colorado Avalanche Information Center. And if we raise funds that go above $36 million, it's split half between the parks and wildlife portions of our budget. And so that's helped us to do species conservation work, outdoor education, just a variety of things on the park side as well. We have, again, found that it was a really good way for us to generate additional revenue. It is down slightly, our overall parks revenue this year from the previous fiscal year, about 3%. We think that might be as people are transitioning from other parks products to the Keep Colorado Wild Pass, but again, much higher level of revenue than we had prior to its inception. And some of the major accomplishments, we've been able to hire more full-time staff for our state parks. We've expanded our parks. We've been able to add new campgrounds. We've funded grants that went to over 30 counties to do their backcountry search and rescue programs. So we really feel like it's a success story having this pass. It's brought in those additional resources, but it also gives the public an easy way to visit and explore our wonderful state park system. And so hopefully this is maybe a model that can be applied in some of your states. With that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to say thanks to Environment America for hosting the conversation. It's exciting to hear what's going on in Texas, Michigan, and Colorado. And it's an honor for me to be here today in front of you and talk about what is really one of the most transformational moments in our park system's history. So I'm Chris Padgett. I'm the administrator of Tennessee State Parks. Been with Tennessee State Parks almost 28 years in a number of roles, as Lynn mentioned earlier. And over that time, I've seen how parks connect people to nature, how they strengthen communities and drive local economies. So to help put things in perspective for what's going on here in Tennessee, in the first 25 years of my career, we added 4 new state parks. Since September of 2022, under Governor Bill Lee's conservation strategy for Tennessee, we are planning to dedicate 14 new state parks. That's growing from 56 to 62 currently, and we have 70 in our sights by December of 2026. For those of you who are good at math, that means we've got 8 between now and December 2026. It's the largest expansion in history, in our history, and a major investment in conservation and access. And the investments are significant. So over the past 6 years, Governor Lee and the General Assembly have committed to over $870 million in capital investment across our system. In addition to that, we had $64 million dedicated specifically to deferred maintenance. And then our regular annual recurring maintenance budget has been increased from $5.2 million to $12 million. So that's not just growth, that is structural change. And it ensures that every new park and every existing park has the resources to operate and to thrive. What makes this moment truly stand out, though, isn't just the growth, it's the method that we've utilized. In the past, we would acquire land first and then figure out staffing, figure out facilities. And there isn't a statutory process to designate a new park in Tennessee. So sometimes that transition would last for years. This time we kind of took a coordinated approach, and many of the new parks are being developed on lands already in public ownership, which gives us a strong foundation to work from. Governor Lee and the General Assembly bought into that framework, and it integrates land acquisition, staffing, and capital investment, and they're all in sync. That alignment, the land, the funding, the people moving, allows us to open parks that are ready for visitors on day one. And similar to what Rodney shared with his timeline, the built environment is going to be built over time, but we'll be open and allowing people to come and access those properties as we move forward. It's a smarter, more sustainable model that builds both capacity and quality. And I think one of the most significant parts of what made that happen is how we talked about it, right? We told the story, the importance of conservation, protecting what's good and passing it on stronger for future generations. That language built trust with the legislators, it built trust with local officials, and built trust with our communities as well, because it spoke to the shared values of responsibility, pride, and stewardship. Talking about conservation in clear, values-based terms was probably one of the strongest tools we used for advocacy during this process. We are also focused on broadening access to all Tennessee state parks. Governor Lee's Access 2030 initiative aims to achieve the goal of having the most accessible park system in the nation by 2030. That means better trails, upgraded cabins, accessible kayak launches, mobility equipment, and design improvements to make the outdoor easier to reach for everyone. Unlike some of you all, Tennessee state parks are free to enter. And for us, that's intentional. Feel like our parks belong to our people. Access 2030 will help ensure that the doors are open wider than ever before. So the goal is simple. Every Tennessean, no matter where they live or what their circumstance, should be able to experience the outdoors close to home. That's conservation with a purpose. It's protecting land while connecting people to it. I really want to take time to acknowledge the exceptional professionalism and dedication of the Tennessee State Park staff. This is a heavy lift. From our frontline park staff to those who work behind the scenes. It's their experience, their pride, and their consistency that has allowed this to happen. They keep our parks safe, clean, and welcoming every single day. And they're the backbone for the success that we're talking about. The results speak for themselves. Tennessee state parks generate nearly $2 billion in economic impact, supporting local businesses and jobs, especially in rural areas of Tennessee. Every dollar invested pays dividends in tourism, outdoor recreation, and community vitality. But beyond economics, it really is about legacy. It's about protecting lands, rivers, and cultural sites that define who we are as Tennesseans. So Governor Lee's conservation strategy is about more than growth. It's about stewardship. It's ensuring what we build today stands the test of time. We're working hard to make sure that happens. We are super proud of our progress. We're confident in where we're heading. By planning ahead, investing wisely, and staying true to our values that define Tennessee, we're ensuring that our parks remain places of pride, connection, an opportunity for generations to come. It is an exciting time to be a Tennessean and to be associated with Tennessee State Parks. And Lynn, I will pass it back to you.
Great. That was very inspiring. I'm going to come to Tennessee and visit all of your new parks once they're up and running.
Let
And
me
the
know when
tech-
you're headed this way, and we'll hit every single one of them.
Excellent. Want to encourage folks to use the Q&A. So there's at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a little bubble with a question mark in it that says Q&A. We've got 2 questions on the board so far, so we'll start with those. The first one I think is a specific question for Rodney, which is where did the $1 billion come from that
Yeah.
you're then going to be able to spend the interest?
Yeah, no, good question. A few years ago, the state experienced a surplus in dollars. And so there were a lot of initiatives and a lot of important funding initiatives that the state of Texas wanted to tackle. And we took some of that surplus and thankfully through the leadership of Texas Parks and Wildlife and our commissioner executive office, and like I said, some key champions in the legislature, we took some of that surplus and created this endowment. And the fact that it's an endowment, allows us to continue to build out parks in the future. It protects the principle. So excited about that, and excited about what we'll be able to offer the citizens of Texas as a result. So yeah, state surplus.
Excellent. May every state have a surplus that can then be yanked for state parks. Okay, so next question. President appreciates the graphic from Michigan breaking down the funding sources, and then is wondering about the breakdown in funding from for Texas, Colorado, and Tennessee. So how much from the general fund versus other sources? So we can probably go in that order. So Texas, Colorado, and Tennessee. And I understand you won't have a graph like Kristen did, but
Yeah,
rough breakdown.
Sure. So in addition to the Centennial Fund, we've been very fortunate with a lot of support in the state of Texas. A few years ago, after years and years of hard work and a lot of people advocating for sustained funding for Texas state parks, the legislature allowed us to pass what's called Prop 5, which is dedicated sporting goods sales tax. So all the taxes collected in the state of Texas off the sale of sporting goods, tents, basketball, hockey sticks, that is dedicated. I should have said hiking sticks, not just hockey sticks, but all of that is dedicated specifically to state parks and historic sites. So and it cannot be spent on anything else. So the legislature put that constitutional amendment in front of the voters, and the voters passed it at 88%. So operationally, state parks is funded through that dedicated sporting goods sales tax, and it generates over $400 million a year, and that helps fund our operational needs, our capital needs, and all the needs that we need for state parks and historic sites in Texas. So that's the biggest part of where our funding comes from. We also get some funding from user fees that are generated, and then some other additional fees, sources from other places. But the bulk of it is the generosity of sporting goods sales tax.
Great, thank you. Katie.
Sure. Yeah, we have some information on our Colorado Parks and Wildlife website about our funding, basically where the money comes from and where it goes. So that's what I'm looking at to respond. Overall, if you look at Parks and Wildlife as a whole, the amount of general fund that we're getting from the legislature is 1% in this last fiscal year, so it's very low. We're what in Colorado is considered an enterprise agency, which means that we're mostly user funded, and less than 10% of our funding comes from the legislature. Looking specifically at our parks revenue, it's about 45% from licenses, passes, fees, and permits. We also have funding that we receive from our lottery programs. So I think that's another good funding model we've had here in Colorado, is to be able to receive lottery proceeds. That's about 12%, plus funding that also from the lottery goes to Great Outdoors Colorado. That's 16%. Then it's kind of from there, a mixture of federal grants, our registrations for things like boating, snowmobiles. We also get some severance tax from oil and gas operations here in the state. Those are some of the major ways that we're funded. But almost 50% is from licenses, passes, and permits.
Thanks, Katie. Chris.
Yeah, we're a lot less complex. We're very fortunate here in the state of Tennessee. We have a legislature that has supported us for a very long time. We will run about 60-40, 55-45 between state appropriations and our current service revenues. Recurring is about $135.4 million a year. 85.2 of that will be, this past year was state appropriations. We had a record revenue year last year. We brought in $72.5 million. So anything that we have in excess of what has been appropriated, we have the ability to carry forward to the next year to do projects here within the state of Tennessee. But we're very, very fortunate to have the support of the legislature like the level that we do.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so next is we've got a Texas and Tennessee. What criteria do you use to evaluate potential new parks? So Rodney, you want to take that first?
Sure, I'll go first. And just so y'all know, I had a slide on that, but I I did take that one out because, but I will tell you, it is a process, and we've got a very good team of people. It takes a lot of people, subject matter experts, to look at a property from their particular point of view. So we have a team of people called the Centennial Parks team, where our staff, from our infrastructure team to our natural and cultural resource team, our operations team, we have a set of criteria that talks about access. Where is the property in the state? How big is the property? Is there any legal liabilities on the property? So there's a series of things that we're looking for specifically to determine, does this really make a good state park? First of all, starting with, is it iconically beautiful? We want these beautiful, there are a lot of great ranches out there that are great for some things, but not necessarily destinations for state parks. So we're looking at the iconic beauty of a park. We're looking for those very logistical things like, can we get water to the site? Can we get electricity to the site? What is the topography of the site? Can we build campsites on it? So there's a whole list of criteria, Lynn, that we use, that we check off, and that process is very arduous. To date, we've received over 120, close to 130 proposals, and we've narrowed that down to a very small few that we're really taking a serious look at. And the properties that I showed you were the first ones among those. But it is a very lengthy process that is done by a very capable and very smart group of people on our state parks team. And not just in state parks, but also in Texas Parks and Wildlife and some of the other divisions as well.
Chris.
Yeah, so it's going to be very similar to what Rodney and the team down in Texas do as well. There's a list of criteria, right? And as Rodney alluded to, I think I get an email every single week about something that would be an exceptional state park here in the state of Tennessee, right? So
yep.
you want to take those opportunities to look and evaluate those. But at the end of the day, is there something there that elevates it to state park status? We want to tell the story of Tennessee and Tennesseans across our landscape, and we feel like we do a pretty good job, but there's some holes here or there. We also look at geography, where it is in the state. Are there some rural areas, some rural economies that could be elevated by having a state park within that region? And is there something iconic, as Rodney alluded to, that would allow for us to do that? So very similar process, have a criteria that gets looked at diligently, and we say no often.
Gotcha. Okay, so there's 3 questions about the passport or the vehicle registration. I'm gonna combine them for Michigan and Colorado. So and rephrase them slightly. So apologies to the question answers. So for those 2 states, were there annual passes before? Was there a price difference for once you incorporated into the vehicle registration process? what does the participation kind of difference look like for having to, you know, buy the annual pass versus the registration? And then is it, this was from, is it do the funds get applied in the same way that so I think basically, what is the difference between an annual pass and the car registration passes, and how is that played out in your state? So I don't know, Katie, Kristen, go ahead.
Oh, sure. I can jump in. Yep. So we did used to have an annual pass that people had to buy at the park themselves. So they would have, the entrance booth would have to be open. Someone would have to purchase it at the time they came to the park. So we did see moving it to our Secretary of State and having it automatic with the vehicle registration. Really, it helped the ease of people buying them. It also helped increase our participation by making it easier to do with your vehicle registration. And previously, it did have a higher cost. And I think that was part of how we were able to sell it to the legislature and to all of the residents of Michigan who would participate. It had been, I believe, don't quote me on this, but around $24 previously for an annual pass. And it went down to $10 when we did the fee with the license plate through our Secretary of State. So we did cut the price down, which we hope, encourage people to participate. And then we also saw growth in how many people bought the pass. And then I think I missed the third part of that question.
I think they were all sort of, it was, does the revenue from this, is it applied the same way that the annual pass revenue was applied, or it would be applied?
I don't know. That was before my time, but I can say that our current passport does have a formula. So 50% goes to state park infrastructure, 30% is dedicated to operations and maintenance, 10% actually goes to local public recreation grants. So those are local regional parks that can apply to get that funding. So that was, I know, part of what helped sell it to our legislature, is that it would help other parks across the state as well, with that 10% going to funding for local parks. 7% goes to our forest recreation, which includes our state forest campgrounds. And then almost 3% goes to cultural and historic resources. And then just a very tiny, 0.25% goes to marketing the pass to encourage people to participate in the program.
Katie?
Sure, yeah, and I can jump in on Colorado on sort of that last point about, I think I already explained where the money goes. I do think having some of those other elements beyond state parks, like the Backcountry Search and Rescue and the Avalanche Center, those were helpful to getting support for the Keep Colorado Wild Pass. And we still do have other annual state park pass products, because the Keep Colorado Wild Pass is only available to Colorado residents. So, there might be a non-resident, maybe lives close to the border and visits our parks frequently. They can pay $80 for an affixed parks pass that would, go on their windshield. We also have a $120 transferable pass. So if you wanted to move it between vehicles, you could do that. I think we have seen a drop in the purchase of those annual pass products as people have, bought this Keep Colorado Wild Pass. We've definitely seen a decrease in the purchase of our daily entrance fees. I think that's part of where we're seeing that overall slight decrease from the last fiscal year, because our daily entrance passes cost between $10 and $12. So again, if you're going, say, at least 3 times a year, you might as well get the Keep Colorado Wild Pass. So that is something that we've seen a major change with the daily pass purchases in particular.
And I'll just add, I don't know if Katie experienced this in Colorado, but for us, having people come in with the pass already on their license plate really helps with entrance station wait times. It helps the staff in the field, do transactions more quickly. So there's definitely a savings on the staff in the field and making their jobs a little easier as well.
Yeah, I think for those particularly busy times at the parks, we have at some parks just basically a bypass lane. If you have that Keep Colorado Wild Pass, you're driving right in. Now, we might still reach capacity at a park, which is usually related to the amount of parking spots that we have. And so there could still be a wait to get in. But yeah, sometimes people have the pass, they drive right on in. So that's another advantage for people that hold that Keep Colorado Wild Pass.
Great. I think that answered the various questions, but for questioners, if I didn't get at it at your particular thing, feel free to pop back into the Q&A. gonna hop around here. So here's, I think this is a question from a Texan. So how big a role do donations play in contributing to state parks in Colorado, Tennessee, and Michigan? In Texas, we have a lot of partner groups that help generate public involvement. So curious about what other methods are out there. And then side note, I'm personally a big fan of Meme and Shelby in Tennessee and Warren Dunes in Michigan. So how big a role do donations play in contributing to state parks outside of Texas? And whoever wants to take that one first, go for it.
I don't mind jumping in since they mentioned Meme and Shelby State Park here in Tennessee. If you have the opportunity to visit, I recommend it. It's in Shelby County down near Memphis, about 13,000 acres. It's got some WPA and some CCC history as well. For those of you who may be a history nut, donations play a role, right? And sometimes a significant role with individual parks. We've had land donations, financial donations, both that have contributed to the establishment of parks or the betterment of parks. So definitely not insignificant, but it's hard to quantify currently exactly what that is here in Tennessee.
I can jump in on Colorado. Overall for our Colorado Parks and Wildlife budget, it's only about 1% from donations. We have seen some good luck with a roundup programs. If people are buying our products, they do have the opportunity to round up, and that's brought in some good funds. I think there's just other opportunities too to get, more planned giving. We really only have one staff person dedicated to donations and philanthropic giving. So that's an area where maybe we could grow, but yeah, it's a pretty small amount of our revenue overall.
Yeah, and I'll just add they're really important to Michigan. I think we, could always do more to seek donations and private philanthropy. But two that I want to highlight are we're creating a new state park in Flint, Michigan, and we had a significant donation from the Mott Foundation that's helping us create an endowment to maintain park operations there. And they've also been a strong partner helping us develop the park. So that's a great example where we have the public-private partnership to help us create the new park in Flint. And then we also have had some really fun, innovative, creative ideas that have helped us raise money. We started the Bob Ross Run a couple of years ago. We call it the Run for the Trees. And I think other state parks have jumped on that as well. It's been really popular, especially during COVID. It's something we do annually, and we do create funding through that people, sign up for the run and then also donate. So there's some different fundraising opportunities, but I do think it's something that we could do better, and there's probably more opportunities out there to grow.
All right. Okay, we're back to Texas specific question. Was the creation of the Centennial Parks Conservation Fund a ballot measure? And what is the fund invested in? And ballpark, how much funding has been created from the interest? We're starting to get very specific, Rodney.
Very, very much so. So the first part of the question, one more time, Lynn, is how
was it a ballot measure?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
That's very, very important point. It was absolutely a ballot measure. I'm very proud of the citizens of Texas. They really love their outdoor space and parks. So 77% it passed. The citizens of Texas voted in favor of creating the Centennial Parks Endowment Fund. The fund, the $1 billion, is invested with a company called the Texas Safekeeping Trust, and they basically invest those funds. We're getting anywhere from upward 3 to 4%, maybe sometimes higher, but it has generated in about 18 months, $87.2 million. So we've got about exactly $87.2 million that of interest that we can tap into for the development of some of the properties that I've shown you.
Great. Okay, so all right, well, Rodney, this looks like it's a follow-up. So is there a sunset of the Centennial Fund? Does it have to go back for another public vote or anything like that?
It does not. It is good in perpetuity. There's some measures, of course, in place for us to make sure we're informing state leadership on properties we want to purchase or development process. There's a legislative budget board approval process that goes through. But as far as sunsetting it, it is good from now and until, as far as I know, forever. I think that's what the intent was. As long as we're using the interest, it doesn't have to go up for another vote. So I'm thankful for that. And hopefully future generations of Texans will benefit from the endowment fund as well.
Okay, so then question, what strategies do you use to market your parks to people considering visiting your state? And this is a question from Alaska, the note that Alaska is looking at constructing a 500-mile long trail.
Well, that's great. I can jump in on this one. So Michigan has a number of long distance trails, including the Iron Belt Trail that goes all the way from Detroit up through the Upper Peninsula over to the Wisconsin border. But we use a number of strategies. I think a lot of people are probably familiar with the Pure Michigan marketing campaign. So they're often looking at all of our incredible resources and trails and as an opportunity to get people to come visit Michigan and use our trail system. But beyond that, we also have a division within DNR dedicated to marketing and outreach. And so they do a lot of communications efforts as well. We use social media. But to us, I mean, I think we know the value in Michigan of how incredible our trails are. And so that's something all the local communities also support and get behind. And, you know, we see a lot of support for our trails statewide. So good luck, Alaska. I'd love to come hike your new trail.
Anyone else want to speak to marketing to visitors?
I'll be glad to. Or go ahead,
Go for
Katie, if you'd like.
I was just going to say, I know that we do work closely with our Colorado Tourism Office. And so I think we oftentimes look to them for the insights on what might most resonate with potential visitors. But we're collaborating to make sure that we're, you know, providing the photos, materials, and things that will help them to amplify the number of visitors that we have coming in from outside Colorado.
Yeah, I was going to kind of piggyback on that as well. We have an exceptional relationship with our Department of Tourism. They do a wonderful job of promoting us, not only statewide, but nationally and globally. And then we have an internal marketing team that does an exceptional job. If you go look at our website, it's already quality, but we're in the process of a whole website redesign. It's been about a 2-year process, so I'm really excited. Come back, visit the website February or March of next year. It'll be all brand new. All the social media channels. I think we have over 200 social media pages that we manage through not only our central team, but also our parks teams that do a really exceptional job of selling Tennessee and what Tennessee State Parks have to offer. And I too wish Alaska the best of luck with a 500-mile trail. We have a 300-mile trail that we're close to connectivity on that takes you from south to north through the state of Tennessee. So we can just visit each other and hike some trails.
Great. Okay, so then this is informed by a question, but is also a question for me. You all have a lot to balance. You've got a conservation mission, you've got recreation missions. How do you know, and more things that you would want to do in any given year than I assume you have, you know, the resources, whether those are people or money or time. So how do you identify kind of the areas of greatest need and balance between, say, you know, an ecosystem restoration or the need for RV parking or the need to replace the bathrooms that are from the 70s or, you know, whatever the combination is? What's the process that you use to figure out, you know, what to do?
Well, Lynn, I think that's the challenge for all of us is it's trying to find that balance, right? And we want to, it'd be one thing to buy these very special places and just put a fence around it and preserve it and not let people in. But what good that would do, would that do? It doesn't connect people to the resources. It doesn't provide the benefits that parks can provide from a happy, healthier, and smarter society and the economic benefit. So we do have to look at our mission and try to prioritize based on all the things we have to do. Some of the things we look at is, you know, health and safety. Those things come first, and we prioritize those things. Some of those repair needs that would limit public access kind of come next, right? If there's a particular repair that would close a park for some reason, from an emergency standpoint, we really look at that. But we also rely on not just our internal team, but our partners as well, to help us take a look at the landscape and make sure we're looking with a wide lens to provide protection for some of these very popular and sacred places and special places. So we're depend on our internal team and our external team to help us prioritize too, because but first and foremost, we just go back to our mission to provide outdoor recreation for present and future generations and protect our natural and cultural resources of the state, and use that as our guide. We also have a strategic plan that we look to too, that gets input from the state of Texas. I think that's important as well. Sorry, it's a little bit of a long question, but it's a hard one to answer.
I think you nailed it though, Rodney, because that is the challenge that every single one of us face, right? It's how do we preserve, protect, and share what it is that we're in charge of? And just like Rodney alluded to with the strategic management plan, we just completed our 10-year plan and identified 4 pillars in the state of Tennessee. And the first pillar is a resource, right? If you don't have the resource, then you don't have a park. You don't have places for people to come and visit. So resource first, then the visitor, the amenities, and then operational excellence, right?
I completely agree with both of you, and I'll just share that a tool we use in Michigan is our park management planning process, and through that we usually identify zones that are either developed recreation, where we know that's a great spot for a campground, and that's kind of dedicated more to the recreation side, and then we also have backcountry and protected natural zones. So that helps us identify where the critical resources are that we do want to protect, and maybe have no development or less development, and then areas that are more appropriate for recreation. So, but I agree, it's the constant challenge, and then prioritizing what we tackle first, using our strategic plan as well. So it's a good challenge. It'll keep us, focused on that for the rest of our time with the parks.
Yeah, and here in Colorado, we're in the process of updating our strategic plan now. We also wrote Colorado's outdoor strategy, where we partnered with our Office of Recreation, with our Great Outdoors Colorado and other partners to really think about, what does it look like for outdoor recreation? How do we balance conservation, recreation? And also in line with that, we have what we call our Regional Partnerships Initiative. So it's taking some of our resources and helping more on a localized scale to think about that balance between conservation and recreation. That's something we continue to try to build new regional partnerships across the state, and we've been working on that the last couple of years too.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. I think we're at exactly time. So Calvin, I don't know if there's anything to wrap up. I'm putting that's up there, and I'm putting Calvin and my email address, and then the National Association of State Park Directors. So I know inevitably, as soon as we start to wrap up, 5 more questions pop up in the Q&A. So to the audience, please send those to us. We'll send them along to our panelists, and we can get you links and information and whatever you need. Again, thank you so much to the panelists and to our audience for spending this hour. I feel I already was a huge fan of state parks, but I feel even more inspired to get out and visit some.
Excellent. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Thank
you
you
all.
all.
Thanks, everybody.
Good to see y'all. Take care.